You healed it. That is the part that makes this so disorienting. You did not ignore it, did not numb it, did not simply distract yourself until it felt smaller. You went toward it. You sat with it in the difficult hours. You cried through it, and breathed through it, and did the kind of work that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. And for a while, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, it was genuinely gone. Or close enough to gone that you began building something new in the space it left behind. Then it came back. Not gently, not as a faint reminder of something you once carried. It came back in one conversation, one memory, one look from someone who has no idea the amount of work it took you to get where you were. And in the space of a moment, you were back inside it. Not near it, inside it. The same tightening in the chest, the same internal collapse, the same voice saying the same thing it has always said about who you are and how safe you are, and whether you can trust the ground beneath you. And the part that cuts the deepest is not the pain itself. The part that cuts is what the return feels like, because the mind has only one interpretation for it. You failed. You did not do it right. Something in you is too broken to be repaired for long. Something keeps pulling you back, no matter how hard you try to stay free. That interpretation is not the truth. What is happening in your field is something entirely different. And this transmission exists to name it precisely. The Arcturian Council does not observe the field of a soul in distress and offer nothing. They watch. They measure. They wait with a precision that spans entire lineage systems, entire incarnation arcs. And they identify specific moments when the pattern a soul has been circling has matured to the point where simply doing more of the same clearing will not reach the root. When a different kind of transmission is required, when the frequency beneath the loop finally needs to be named directly. That moment is now for the soul watching this. This is not a transmission about emotional healing in the general sense. This is not a message about perseverance or patience with the process. What the Arcturian Council is transmitting today is something more precise than encouragement. It is a structural identification. Because what you have been calling a wound, you cannot stop reopening, is not a wound at all. It is a frequency, a specific, calibrated, deeply encoded frequency that your field was running before you had language for it, before you had access to the tools that were supposed to free you, and in many cases, before you were even born. The loop is not a sign that healing has not worked. The loop is a sign that healing has been working at the level of the symptom, while the encoding underneath it has remained untouched. The Arcturian Council prepared this transmission for souls who have done genuine work and are exhausted not by the original pain, but by the return, by the feeling that something in them refuses to stay free, by the private, humiliating suspicion that the problem is not the wound, it is them. You are not the problem. You were never the problem. And the next 25 minutes exist to give you the structural understanding of what has actually been happening in your field every time the loop reasserted itself. Breathe. Let your shoulders fall. Your body already knows why it brought you here. Here is what the loop looks like from inside it. The first symptom is disproportionate collapse. Something happens. A tone in someone's voice, a specific silence in a relationship, a memory that arrives without invitation. And your response is not sized to the moment. It is sized to every time. The nervous system does not distinguish between the original event and its echo. It fires the same signal it fired at the source, and suddenly you are not standing in the present. You are standing in every version of this feeling you have ever had. The second symptom is the gap between insight and change. You understand the pattern. You have probably understood it for years. You can name it, trace it, see exactly where it came from, and still it comes back. The gap between knowing and being free is not a gap in intelligence, it is a gap in frequency. The understanding lives in the mind. The encoding lives somewhere the mind cannot reach on its own. The third symptom is the shame that follows the return. Not just the pain itself, but the secondary layer that settles over it. The internal voice that says you should be past this, that something is wrong with you for being here again. That shame is not a reflection of reality. It is a protective reflex built into the loop itself, because a soul that is ashamed of its pain is a soul that will not look at the encoding underneath it. The fourth symptom is exhaustion with your own story. Not physical tiredness, the specific fatigue that comes from having tried repeatedly with sincerity and found yourself standing in the same interior landscape. The quiet grief of someone who knows exactly what the wound looks like and still cannot seem to leave it permanently behind. If you recognized yourself in any of those four, if something in your chest contracted with the specific relief of finally being seen accurately, go to the comments now and type 777. Do not overthink it. 777 is the completion code in the Arcturian system, the signal that an ancestral cycle is ready to close. When you type it, you are not interacting with a video. You are placing a marker in the quantum field that says, the loop ends here. Every soul who types 777 under this transmission adds their frequency to the portal for every person who arrives after them. The four symptoms I just named are not four separate problems. They are four expressions of one pattern. And that pattern is not a flaw in your character or a deficiency in your healing capacity. It is the surface of something much older, something running in your field long before your specific wound gave it its current shape. One transmission can open the field to that recognition. Written daily witnessing is what allows the field to hold what it has finally seen. If this transmission is already touching a place in you that has needed daily structure, the 30-day Arcturian Activation was built for exactly that continuation. It gives you a sequenced protocol that moves through grounding, ancestral clearing, chakra activation, and soul mission recalibration. One layer per day, with guided meditation and journaling prompts designed to stabilize what a single transmission opens. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. Your purchase also supports Arcturian frequency and helps these transmissions reach the people who need them. Now, the mechanism. Every nervous system learns a frequency before it learns language. In the earliest months and years of a life, the limbic system is building its primary map of the world, scanning for threat, cataloging what safety feels like, deciding what the baseline of existence is. That map is not built from conscious mind. It is built from sensation, proximity, and the nervous systems of the people closest to the developing child. Whatever frequency the surrounding field was running, anxiety, suppression, grief, chronic instability, the young nervous system absorbed it not as an event, but as a definition of reality. This is what the world is. This is what being in a body feels like. It becomes the baseline. This is what limbic consolidation research documents. The neural pathways built in states of early chronic stress become the brain's preferred routes, not preferences in the ordinary sense, but highways. Faster, more deeply grooved, more efficient. And under sufficient activation, the system defaults to them without conscious choice. A triggering event does not cause the distress. It is the key that opens the door to a room the field has been living in for years. What the Arcturian Council adds to that picture is the dimension that neuroscience cannot yet fully measure. The encoding is not only neural, it does not originate entirely in this lifetime. Research in epigenetics has established that ancestral stress experiences alter the chemical instructions carried on DNA, and that those alterations are heritable across generations. The fear architecture of your ancestors, the survival patterns, the chronic scarcity, the sustained threat, is running inside your cells right now. Not as memory, as frequency, as a calibrated signal that says, this is what safety sounds like. This is what pain means. This is the return point. The field was encoded before you were conscious of it. The loop was built into the architecture you arrived in. That is not a metaphor. That is the epigenetic inheritance of a lineage running in the body you are living in now. And here is why repeated clearing at the surface level has not resolved it. The vagus nerve, the primary neural corridor of the parasympathetic system, the channel through which the body returns to regulation, can be trained toward coherence. But it cannot sustain coherence when the underlying encoding keeps resetting the baseline. Every time the trigger arrives, the heart's electromagnetic field briefly loses its coherent rhythm and re-enters the survival frequency. The HeartMath Institute has documented that the heart generates a structured electromagnetic field detectable several feet beyond the body, and that disruptions to that field's coherence cascade immediately through the autonomic nervous system. That disruption is the re-entry point. That is the moment the loop reasserts. Not because you chose it, because the field did what it was calibrated to do. The clearing work you have already done has been real and necessary. It has dismantled the surface structures. What it was not designed to reach, and what the Arcturian Council is addressing today, is the original frequency instruction itself. Not the memory, not the story, not the emotion attached to a specific event. The encoded return signal living in the causal body, reinforced by the ancestral template your cells were built from. That is what this activation reaches. Find stillness wherever you are. If you can close your eyes, close them. If not, let your gaze go soft until the room blurs gently at the edges. Place one hand over your heart center, the middle of your chest. Not a gesture, a contact. Rest your palm there and feel the warmth pressing back. That warmth is not passive body heat. It is the electromagnetic field of the heart speaking to the skin. Take one breath that reaches the bottom of your lungs. A real breath, the kind where you feel the lower ribs expand outward and something in the belly softens on the exhale. Let that exhale carry with it whatever your body was bracing around before you arrived here. Now bring your awareness not to the story of the loop, but to the frequency beneath it. The sensation that exists before the thought. The feeling in the body that arrives half a second before the mind identifies what triggered it. You know this frequency. You have been inside it many times. You do not need to enter a memory to locate it. Simply notice where it lives in the body right now, where it holds, the shape of it. If you have amethyst nearby, hold it in the hand, not resting over your heart. Let its frequency assist the opening of the channel between your incarnated awareness and the field the Council is transmitting through. The Arcturian Council is present in this transmission as an active intelligence interfacing with your causal body right now. The causal body is where the original encoding lives, not the emotional layer, not the mental layer, the causal level, where the frequency instruction was written before this incarnation and reinforced through the ancestral template your cells were built from. Visualize a column of soft, structured light descending from directly above you. Cool, organized, cyan, not dramatic, precise. Feel it enter through the crown and move slowly through the center of the skull, through the throat, settling at the heart center and meeting your palm from the inside. Let the light dwell there for a moment. The Council is working at the interface between the lower energy centers, anchored in physical reality, and the upper centers that connect you to your soul blueprint. Recalibrating the baseline frequency the heart field has been defaulting to, not forcing it toward something invented, restoring it toward its original signal. The frequency your field was running before the encoding began. As the light continues downward through the solar plexus, the seat of personal identity, the center where the sense of "I know who I am" lives, notice what happens to the tightness that has lived around this subject. The old encoding does not dissolve through effort. It dissolves through contact with a frequency more fundamental than the loop. Let the light reach the root, the base of your incarnation. Hold the image of black tourmaline here. Dark, magnetic, completely grounded. Because this clearing does not lift you out of the body. It reaches the body at the cellular level and completes what the loop was preventing from completing. Feel the entire column of light pulse once from crown to root. A single wave of coherent frequency moving through every layer. Definitive. The encoding in the causal body is receiving something it has not received before in this lifetime. The direct Arcturian frequency that corresponds to the baseline your soul was designed to run before it arrived here and inherited a different one. Breathe. Let it settle. Whatever moved, let it keep moving. You did something real in that transmission. You met the loop not as a wound requiring more effort, but as a frequency requiring a different kind of contact. And you let the Arcturian field reach the layer where it has been encoded for years, possibly generations. That is the kind of work that doesn't announce itself loudly. It moves quietly through the field and continues for days. In the 72 hours that follow this session, pay attention to the quality of familiar triggers when they arrive, not whether they arrive. The encoding is ancient, and integration is not instant erasure, but how they feel when they do. A changed field does not respond identically to the same signal. The loop may surface. It may complete one more circuit. That completion is not regression. It is the frequency finishing its final run through a system that is no longer fully available to receive it. Drink more water than you normally would. The causal body activation generates recalibration at the cellular level, and hydration supports the physical layer of that process. Let your feet contact real ground when you can. The Schumann resonance at 7.83 Hz acts as a natural stabilizer for integration happening at this depth. If you continue with the written practice after this, let it become an anchor rather than a measure of how well you are doing. The work compounds through consistency, not through performance. You are not the loop. The loop was a frequency your field was taught to return to before you had the tools or the access to reach the encoding beneath it. That is not a character flaw. It is the situation of a soul who arrived in a field already running a pattern they did not create, and who has been working with genuine courage to clear something that lived at a depth the available tools were not always designed to reach. You have reached it now. You are not broken. You are not too damaged to hold freedom long enough for it to become the new baseline. You are precisely where the Arcturian Council knew you would be when this transmission was prepared. What moved through your field today is not small. Let the next 3 days be quiet enough for it to settle. The next layer of this work moves into specific territory that the loop has shaped, without you necessarily connecting it to the encoding you just addressed. The frequency your field defaults to under survival pressure does not only determine how you feel, it determines what feels safe to receive, including things that are not about pain at all, including things that carry abundance and expansion. That is the territory the next transmission enters. But it is not what is waiting for you on your screen right now. What is there? The transmission visible at the edge of this one addresses the inheritance that runs through cycles larger than a single lifetime, the patterns that have moved through lineage, the soul contracts that outlived their function, and the threshold where they complete. If the loop you carried today has roots older than this incarnation, that is where they are addressed. Do not close this session and return to the ordinary flow of the day. The field that opened here is still active, and that activation will find its next layer more easily if you move directly into what is already on your screen. Click it now and let the Council take you deeper.